You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clark, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm again joined by my host, Mark Clark and Marco Corona. It's another big week in the NBA, the 8th seed. That's shaping up to be a real dogfight for that 8th seed. Looks like there's going to be a play-in game on Saturday. So I guess we could jump right into that and start talking about how that 8th seed's going to go down.
We'll just say the West is a mess.
Yeah.
A mess is an understatement, but it's a great mess, and a great mess that we all want to watch. And
it's an entertaining one.
Yeah, let's face it. I think coming into the bubble, we all had our doubts, at least I did, about how this play-in game was going to be going down, right? What's it going to be? I mean, for crying out loud, even Damian Lillard didn't want to participate. And now we're talking about one of the best finishes we've had in a long time. And I think it's great. I think it's making for great TV.
It is. It's very entertaining. I would never think that the Suns would be competing for the 8th seed at all if you asked me at the beginning of the season.
I called it last week. Man. I have faith in Logo Book there.
Logo booked.
Yeah, hitting shots from everywhere. That's three games that he's got 35 plus points in the bubble. They're 7-0.
I'll say this: I'm very impressed with the Suns, man. I mean, I've always been impressed with Book. I've always known what Book could do, but I'm very impressed with that team overall coming in the bubble and going 7-0. Imagine that. And they've won against some big teams too.
They have nothing to lose. And that's sometimes the most dangerous team that you can run into because they are young. They are exciting to watch. They have a lot of energy. They have a great coach in Monty Williams, who doesn't get enough credit for his past work before in his other coaching stops. And now this one. But this team is playing with house money and they have nothing to lose. Listen, even if they don't get in for some odd miracle, this is a building block. They know what they can do, and they're just going to have to get better next year, right? Because let's face it, going into this, even to this very podcast, not even this podcast, like our entire season, we were talking about Phoenix being the doormat of the West, right? I mean, Sacramento has a title, but Phoenix hasn't been relevant in years. And the problem with Phoenix has always been, if you don't win, we're not going to show up. But tell you what, everybody's talking about Phoenix right now, right? Other teams are talking about Phoenix. I heard LeBron give a shout out to the Phoenix Suns as well today. So that's a big deal. When other players are noticing the steps that you're taking as a franchise and you're catching everybody's attention, you got something going. Now the question is, can they keep it up and can they get in? And if they're in, they're in. And after that, who knows? Anything's possible, but I love it. Listen, I didn't pick him to get in, and I'm not going to backpedal now. And I wish we can edit last week's episode, but I'm still sticking with Memphis, which is not looking good. But
I gave you multiple chances to change your team, right?
Yeah, so. I am way too stubborn. Yep. But
hey, shout out to my Portland Blazers. Just won their game against Dallas earlier. They're getting closer to that 8th seed as that playing team.
I think the shout out should really go out to the LA Clippers for waking up the sleeping giant that's Damian Lillard.
To Beverly and
Paul George, thank you.
Yeah, and Paul George's sister and everybody else who's involved, right? Listen, Damian Lillard was playing great basketball. And then these guys went out there and started talking smack. And you know what happens with great players. You don't talk in Superman's cape. You just let it be. And now my guy, how many points did he score tonight? 61?
61 points. Yeah, 61 points.
Like, why? Just let him be. Let him be. And now he's got beef with everybody. It's Damon against everybody. And Jeez, my God.
He's out there balling like James Harden last season, eh?
The difference is that Dame is pissed.
True.
Right?
He has something to prove now. He's playing with a
Right.
chip on his shoulder.
Right, because people forget, right, that this team was in the Western Conference Finals last year. It's not like this team just showed up this year all of a sudden, oh, we're
For
really
the past
good,
couple of years.
right? They had a bit of a challenging year with the injuries and, players coming in and out, but they're here.
But see,
2 games
that's
left.
one good thing that, if you want to say, this pandemic brought to the NBA is that players got enough time to rest, to heal, and basically a lot of these teams coming back for the restart of the season, they're completely different teams than what they were when at the end of or at the break.
Right. No, and I guess it's the team that adjusts the best is the ones that's going to make the damage. So.
Well, and that's the thing. You woke up a sleeping giant in Dame Lillard. I mean, 112 points in 2 games. Like, in 2 games, he's got 112 points after Paul George and Beverly went off on him and got all this Skip Bayless. All these people went off on him, not calling him, a top 5 player. He's not considered a great player. He's not a superstar because of his playoff nonsense.
I was just gonna say, is Dame Lillard a superstar in your guys' eyes?
Oh my God,
absolutely.
He's elite. Yeah,
absolutely,
superstar.
I mean, a superstar. Yes.
Like,
yeah.
For Paul George to go out there and say anything and then to say anything about anybody. I mean, he hasn't done anything himself. Yeah, he's helped the Pacers to the playoffs and conference finals and facing LeBron and stuff like that. But he hasn't won a title. He hasn't done any of that either. He's chasing a title with LeBron with Kawhi Leonard. He went over there. He asked for a trade. He wanted to get out so that way he can win a title. Dame Lillard hasn't done that. He's told, and Earl Watson, I don't know if Earl Watson came out on Twitter today and said, if Dame Lillard's not going to say it, I'm going to say it. According to Earl Watson, he was asked to join a big superstar team. He was asked to join another team to make a superstar team, and he called Earl Watson supposedly and told him that he wasn't going to do it. Said there's no way. He's like, I want to win with Portland, and I want to beat these mother effing super teams because that's what I want to do. I don't want to join another team to win. I want to win by myself and be able to show that I'm a winner. And he's doing it right now. He's helping pulling the Blazers back into the playoff picture when nobody ever thought they would be in there. Nobody thought they'd be in there at the end of the season just because of the way they were playing with the injuries to Nurkic and all that stuff. But now they're playing well. And like I said, 112 points in 2 games. The guy's a superstar, an elite superstar.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see him turning down that offer. That's not his style. Super teams isn't his style.
Yeah, and it's funny because guys get criticized for moving to other teams, for joining with superstar elite teams, et cetera, but Dame also gets criticized for staying in Portland and being a Portland Trailblazer. When as a fan, that's all you want. You want some loyalty. You want guys to stay and win. It's up to the franchise to make eventually moves to get to the next level. As Masai, he had to make a decision that changed the course of this franchise forever.
Yeah.
But you can't blame a guy. You can't even blame a guy like, DeMar DeRozan for wanting to be a Raptor forever, because that's just his loyalty. That's where he wants to be, and that's where he wants to win championships. And if Dame wants to do that, all power to him. It's up now to the franchise to surround him with the cast, and they have a pretty good team. I still don't believe in their defense, and I said that last week, and I'm going to stick to that. I think their defense concerns me a lot. But you get into a hot streak, hey, just outscore somebody by 1.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly. Right. You got to look at it like it is today. He had 3 points, and they won by what? 3 points today. Yeah. He had 61 of those points. The rest of the guys didn't really step up that much. Gary Trent has been playing off the charts in terms of 3-pointers in the bubble, but today he wasn't the greatest. He didn't have the best game. So Lillard has to put the team on his back for most games and carry that team. can he do that for 16 wins? I don't think so. It's too tough of a task. It's too tough of a task to carry the load of that team for 16 games to win an NBA title, unless there's more pieces and a stronger bench. It's going to be hard for Portland to win, but you never know. You can't count Dame Lillard out, because look at what he did. Look at what he's done right now.
You can't. You should never count out elite stars like that, and just leave them alone, like I said. But you know what? It's going to be fun watching them. If they get in and they get that 8 seed and they face the LA Lakers, that's not a normal number 8 seed team, right? And again, home court advantage is out the window because everybody's playing in the same place, right? And this is why all these teams are trying to jockey for space, whether they sit people down or whatever the case may be. That's another story, but it's about matchups. Now, I always say, be careful what you ask for, right? You play who you play. If you're good enough, you don't worry about that. But, once you're in the dance, party on, man, and we'll see, right? All it takes is somebody to roll an ankle and, it's a wrap. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, anything can happen when it comes.
Shout out to the Blazers, though, for taking a chance and bringing back Melo in the league. I mean, it seemed to be working out for them.
I guess. I mean, I'm not a Melo fan. I'm not going to get in my soapbox and talk about, what my personal likes are with Melo, whatnot. But they did give him a chance, and you know what? He's played well. So I have to give him credit for that, and give Melo credit for also adjusting, right? I mean, Melo is a volume shooter.
Shape when he wasn't playing too.
Not only staying in shape, but getting into better shape after the restart.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And Melo has always been a volume shooter, not the best defender, right? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he was a New York Knicks, so I mean, that's your resume right there. But at the end of the day, Melo has always been a good offensive player, and that's who he is. Personally, and maybe for another topic for another day, I think he's slightly overrated in my part, but that's me.
I mean, and I'll go back to the loyalty factor. If he never left Denver, what kind of a career would he have had? Like sometimes he left, he went to the Knicks, and look what happened to him.
Did Masai trade Carmelo? Was he there for that trade or no?
I'm not 100% sure. We'd have to double check that, but I mean, I know, it's still, if he would have been able to stay there but I'm pretty sure he left because he didn't want to be there anymore. But
right.
I could be wrong. But either way, you talk about loyalty. I mean, he was loyal to them for a while, and then he decided he was going to leave. And sometimes leaving isn't the best option for you.
No.
Leaving for greener pastures isn't the best option for you, and sometimes staying there is your best choice.
Just to piggyback on what Marco said earlier just now about positioning, how about the Nets being confident they can beat the Raptors in the first round?
I mean, I'm confident I can win the lottery, but it hasn't happened yet. So, listen, like I said earlier to you guys and before we got on, what else are you supposed to say? We have no chance. Right, like we're not even sure why we're here. We're
at least at that point they'll be honest.
Right, fair enough. But I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are competitors. They're going to give. Yeah. I personally think they're going to give the Raptors a bit of a push, and by push I mean they're going to make him work for every basket. And this team, the Raptors, the Toronto Raptors, they're too well coached to take anybody lightly, right? Teams like that don't just come in and just think that they're going to sweep. Now, do they want to? Probably, but I think the Nets give them a run for their money a little bit.
Well, we saw what happened last season with first round with the Magic. Magic won that first game, remember?
Yeah, that never happened.
Yeah, and then that was like an eye opener for them because obviously they went on and win the rest of the series.
I don't know if it was so much that the Magic won that game. It's that the Raptors lost that game.
Lost the game.
Right? I mean, that game was a 1-point game. It's not like the Raptors, again, but it's the first game, traditionally, the Toronto Raptors have never been great in first games, so you almost expected them to lose.
Yeah.
Right. But again, the Brooklyn Nets, again, they are going to work hard because they have nothing to lose. Right. And they know that. So they're going to flip the script and tell you they have a chance. And yes, Mark, I agree with you. They shouldn't. Right. This should be a maybe Raps in 5, the Toronto Raptors in 5. But I mean, you never count anybody out. And all it takes is just one win. Again, home court is out of the question, so it's all up for grabs. So we'll see what happens there. But kudos to them for doing what they've done, because listen, that roster, if you construct that roster from scratch, that's a really good team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On
They're
paper,
missing 2 elite guys. Speaking of elite,
2 superstars.
Kyrie and KD. And I mean, KD was expected to miss the entire year. So I mean, the sort of like you take that away, but even the guys who they brought in got hurt, right? I don't know what Crawford's status is. I'm sure he'll be ready in a week from now, but they've just had bad luck. But eventually your luck turns around, so just be careful.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you said earlier, you can't, when you get into the big dance, anything could happen. Anything could happen. An ankle injury or, but the only thing with the Raptors need to have an ankle injury to about 5-6 guys, because
Tony Brothers.
Exactly.
I was just gonna say Tony Brothers, Mark Davis.
Yeah, you take out one guy from the Raptors, and then Van Vliet steps up. You take out another guy. Terrence Davis is there. Boucher is there. There's a lot of guys that can step up and play those minutes. You got Matty Ice, who had career game yesterday. Career game yesterday.
Himself. That guy's cold, man.
And Nick Nurse said it today, I believe, or yesterday, that he looks different. He came to the bubble a lot different. He came to the bubble a lot different than when he started the season. He looks more accustomed to the plays, to the team. He's gotten a lot more time.
He has some more confidence.
Yeah,
he's shooting the ball with confidence. He's passing with confidence. He looks completely different, for real.
Yeah, and then you talk about the Raptors. In terms of nobody that many people really think they'd make the playoffs, other than Toronto Raptor fans. I know you got Sam Mitchell, who had them finishing 8th. Dennis Scott had them finishing out of the playoffs.
He didn't have them in the playoffs.
You got that picture.
Right, exactly. ESPN had them finishing 6th. Sporting News had them finishing 5th in the NBA. Nobody had them finishing 2nd with 50 plus wins again. They're not a team that everybody puts them down. I read on Twitter, people were like, 500 teams, they're not really good against 500 plus 500 opponents. Yeah, maybe not.
They were saying that last year too. That was a narrative last year.
Yeah, maybe not. They were 14-15 against 5 plus 500 teams this year. But Boston was 15-15, or they were 500. So it's not like you're talking about like the Eastern teams, other than Milwaukee and Milwaukee and the Heat. None of the East teams were above 500, other than those 2 teams, against plus 500 teams. The Raptors lost. Okay, they lost 3 games to the Celtics. That's 3 games right there that you lost, right? That's a plus 500 team. But they've been 9-1 in their last 10 games. You're like, even before the pandemic, they're 5-0 against under 500, 4-1 against above 500. What matters is how you play going into the playoffs, not how you play at the beginning of the season. Right. Or middle of the season. That has nothing to do with it. You're not a season team. You're a playoff team.
Right. We all know that playoff Raptors they're a complete different team than regular season Raptors. Because Nick Nurse doesn't play when it comes to its playoff. And again, let's face the fact. We were talking about the Brooklyn Nets just now. The Brooklyn Nets, they are not as deep as the Raptors. Again, obviously, not a lot of those guys are going to get minutes in the playoffs. But if it comes down to it, where you have to take out a player, or a player is not available for a certain game, maybe they missed their COVID test or could be a minor injury, whatever. There's still guys there ready to step up. They always have that next man up mentality.
And I think winning a championship gives you that DNA and gives you the right to be confident,
Confidence,
right? And this team has a deep rotation. And I think that once the bench, as we saw it the other day, albeit Milwaukee without their best player, I mean, it doesn't matter. You still got to play well. You would have not known. These guys were playing like if it was, you know, a game 5 of a series. Like Boucher stepped up and Matty Ice stepped up, right? Jefferson's going to give you, I mean, he shouldn't shoot, but he's going to give you hustle, right? That's why his nickname is Hustle Jefferson, right? And these guys just come ready to play. And yes, in the playoffs, you're not going to go 12 deep, but you have to be able to say, okay, if I'm looking down my bench and my 5 guys are not going or my first 7 are not going, who can I get to give me a spark? And to your point, the Nets, because the way the roster is constructed based on their injuries, they don't have that depth, right? Now, there's always somebody who comes out of nowhere every year in every sport that you say, who is that guy? Right?
Remember that
Right?
guy that the Raptors 905 had, Justin Anderson?
Yeah.
He was dropping like 20 plus points with the 905 team.
That's right.
When he was, and then the Nets, they signed him on a 10-day contract. He kind of flopped then. He's back with them now, and he's playing somewhat good.
Yeah, maybe that's your mole, right? But listen, if you think that he's going to try to figure out Nick Nurse's playbook because he was with the Raptors for like 10 minutes, good luck with that.
Well,
Nick Nurse can't even figure out his own playbook.
No.
Nobody could figure out Nick Nurse's playbook. Like,
Right.
Nick Nurse has the Raptors themselves, their DNA. It's defense first, offense second. You know, they get out there and they run and they beat you in transition, and you know they can knock down threes, they can knock down jumpers, but they could beat you in a lot of different ways because of how deep they are and how cohesive they are in terms of as a unit. And we said it last week, you know, going down to the bubble a couple weeks early probably helped them a lot more than it helped other teams who didn't go down to the bubble a lot early. That
shows you how prepared they are too.
Well, you're a championship team. You got to be prepared. You have to be ready to go to battle every day because every team is gunning for you. You're the team that they have to knock off the top of the perch, right? You know, you're the top of the mountain. They got to climb their way to get up. So, you know, I mean, and everybody brings that back. Kawhi's not there. Danny Green, blah, blah, blah. But like Stan Van Gundy said today, they were 17-5 without Kawhi Leonard. Like, it's not like they were 500 or under 500 without him there. They were 12 games above 500 in terms of when Kawhi didn't play. So, I mean, you can't really – I mean, yeah, losing Kawhi is a huge thing. But like you said, next man up, there's a bunch of guys that could step into that role and play just as big minutes, hit those big buckets like Fred VanVleet's done, Kyle Lowry's done, you know.
And the growth of this team, because Kawhi left and he was there also, I don't think that you can put a dollar amount to that, right? Mm-hmm. And yes, he's with the Clippers, and I'm sure they'll do great things. Hopefully not, but I mean, these guys were all like mini Kawhis anyway, right? The only difference was that they could not get to that next level, right? Yeah. You have guys who are professionals in Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka who have been to battles, right? And also, so one thing that people don't talk about enough in basketball or any other sport is that when you lose, right, you appreciate winning that much more.
Yep.
And it's not like the Raptors prior to last year where, you know, rolling out championship parades every 2 years like the New England Patriots in football or the New York Yankees in baseball, right? You're talking about a team that had to learn how to win. And that is invaluable, right? So bringing in a guy like Kawhi, who is the final piece of a team that has been great for pretty much a lot of it's been 8 years, mm-hmm. right? They won 59 games the previous year. That's not that you don't win 59 games by fluke.
No.
Right? You got to get there somewhere. And the fact that this team was this year below 500 before, versus 500 teams, who cares? They had 219 men or whatever, 8 men lost due to injury, and they were a top 3 team in the league. So how come nobody talks about that?
Yeah, everyone's discounting the Raptors and sleeping on that team because they don't have a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
But right now,
they're not a sexy team to watch, right? They're not going to lob alley-oops and wow you with 140 points a game, and they're not pumping their chest every time they make a basket. They're just out there doing their job, business, like like I said to you, Mark, before we started this podcast, like the Raptors are going to Orlando as a business trip. They have something to accomplish. That's it. That's all the thing that matters.
See, the thing is, superstars aren't born overnight. And you could see Pascal Siakam slowly turning into that superstar. Right now, the Raptors team, they're 14-1 when Pascal scores 30 points or more. 14-1. So you see the wheels turning, everything slowly fitting in. And at some point, he's going to be a superstar. And the Raptors could be the first team to win the NBA without a superstar. Just saying.
I'm sure some people down south wouldn't appreciate that.
But imagine, if the Raptors win the chip without a superstar in their team, these teams are going to go get rid of every superstar they have.
What to talk is that league. I don't know if that would happen. I'm going to slightly disagree with you there because I still think that these guys are built. This league is built on stars. However, right, there's going to be certain teams that are in smaller markets that are we can sort of do it.
We can do this too,
right. Like the Lakers are never going to do that. Like the New York Knicks are never going to do that. But teams like are in smaller markets that people don't pay attention to, right?
Like the Phoenix Suns.
Or a Charlotte Hornets, right? Teams like that have not been on the radar for a while. They're like, okay, we don't need an elite player. We just need a bunch of guys that are dogs. We need a good coach. We need a good system coming up, as in the 905, right? And then go from there. So yeah, it could be a game changer, but I still think this league is driven by its superstars, and they like it that way.
Yeah.
Hence why they want to get the Pelicans in, which they're not in. Just saying.
I know Adam Silver isn't happy about that. He'll probably have another play in just for the Pelicans.
Honestly, and I'll keep this one short, I think it's the best thing to happen to the Pelicans to not get in. I think it gives them a chance to evaluate. I hope they make some additions, some more veterans here and there, some stability. Zion's going to grow. But honestly, I don't think this is such a bad thing to not be in the dance, because sometimes what happens is with these teams in any sport is you think that you're better than what you really are. And then you start messing with the plan, right? Trust me. And then it doesn't work out. And then all of a sudden, guys are not happy. You're firing coaches, you're firing GMs when you just got to stick to the plan. This team is way too young. The core of this team is way too young. Yes, they had a few veterans here or there, but I think they're a couple of years away from being,
and it's also the first season they were playing together as well.
Of course, right. I think they actually didn't benefit from the break because I think they were actually playing so well. But this is just such a young team, right? And you're seeing it with Memphis too. Like no coincidence, right? The 2 youngest teams, yes, the team that I picked to get the 8th seed, are the ones that really struggled the most, right? Whereas the teams like San Antonio, and Phoenix is the exception to the rule because they are so hot right now that you can throw everything out the window. But San Antonio is still alive, coached by one of the greatest coaches of our generation, right? And the Portland Trailblazers, who are a veteran team, this is not a young team. They've been there before. Like I said, they were in the Western Conference Finals. They're right in there because they know what it takes to get there, right? So,
too bad the Pelicans didn't make the playoffs, because right now the 8 games that all these teams are playing, it's only because of the Pelicans. It's literally because of the Pelicans why these games are playing right now, or else they would have just gone straight into the playoffs.
I'm not going to make a comment about that. I know that there's a lot that you said there. And I think what you said was there's some sort of conspiracy. And
Hey,
I'm not
you
going to
said
say
the
you're
C
right.
word, not me.
I'm not going to say you're right, but I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
How about that?
So I think we'll do a little shift here. You know, the NBA released their award finalists.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Once we get to it, then
this caused a stir over the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know. We'll go through it. You know, we'll give our predictions on why we think and who we think should win the titles or win the trophies. You know, not Luka Doncic, but we'll go from there. But
Start it off, Mark.
yeah. So MVP. You know, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, and LeBron James. Who do you guys have that's going to be taking the MVP award?
Okay, I've broken this down a little bit, and I'll make it short. But who should win should be LeBron, because you take LeBron away, and that team is mediocre. Simple as that. And you saw it last year. You can say that. I think the Bucks. I'll get to that in 1 second. But the real conversation here is it's Giannis, because, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, he's nominated not only for MVP, but Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And that's no slouch. I mean, you don't just fluke that off. So who's going to win? Giannis Antetokounmpo. The only reason I said LeBron James, by the way, is because I had LeBron James winning in the beginning of the season. Yeah. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Well, Marco, I see you have the same idea as I do. Who should win? Giannis should win. Who will win? LeBron James will win.
Oh.
But Giannis is my pick. Giannis is my pick. But who will actually win? LeBron James.
Why is that? Just curious.
It's just how the
is this an Adam Silver thing?
Yeah, as you said, as you mentioned earlier, the conspiracy.
Hey, I was talking about the Pelicans, man. I wasn't talking about the Lakers. Don't put words in my mouth.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna go on board with you, Mark. I'm gonna pick Giannis winning the MVP. I just think. I know you said take LeBron off, and do they win? I mean, I don't know if they win, but they're still a competitive team. They still have Anthony Davis. I mean, on his best days, I mean, he is a top 5 on his best days. He's a top 5 player. But I mean, you take off Giannis, are they still a great team? I don't know. I mean, they're put together with glue and duct tape in terms of, you know, you've got everything's centered around Giannis Antetokounmpo. You know, you don't have Chris Middleton. Yeah, he's a great player on the team. He's there, but he's not an all.
Is he great though?
He's kind of like what Kawhi was, but to the Raptors. In terms of Kawhi came here, he was that superstar player who was gonna be there in the fourth quarter, be able to knock down clutch shots when you need them. I mean, not 3-pointers, because Giannis isn't great at 3-pointers, but nevertheless, he's got you take him off the team, I don't think the Bucks are as good as they are. I just don't see it. I think he's the most valuable player on that team, hands down, and I think he's the most valuable player in the league.
So you're saying without the Lakers, without LeBron, and the Bucks without Giannis, the Lakers are better than the Bucks?
I didn't say better. I just said in terms of they also have the star player. They have another star player. They have 2 star players on a team. I mean, you look at New Orleans when they were there. Yeah, you know, when Davis was there by himself, for the most part, he was able to propel them to kind of better records and stuff like that. He can do stuff on his own, whereas I don't think you could rely on Chris Middleton to lead your team in scoring every night.
No.
You know, Eric Bledsoe. Those guys aren't your guys to lead your team. That's that's the point I'm trying to make. You know, do the Lakers have anything past Anthony Davis if both of those guys aren't there? No, we've seen what they were before both those guys got there. They couldn't make the playoffs. You know what I mean? And maybe it goes to differ in terms of the Lakers last year didn't make the playoffs, and they had LeBron James. You know what I mean? And they bring Anthony Davis. Is he more valuable to that team than LeBron James is? I mean, obviously not, but I mean, that's up for debate. But I'm definitely still sticking with Giannis. I think he's the MVP of that team for sure. He's definitely running away with that.
All right. So what do we got next? I'm going to leave the one that pisses you off the most to last. So let's go to the Rookie of the Year. So we got Ja, we got Kendrick Nunn, and we got Zion. To me, this is easy.
Yeah,
it's Ja Morant.
Yeah, it's a run. That's a runaway for Ja.
And I say this with no disrespect to Zion Williamson, who happened to go to Duke, who I hate, but it's Ja Morant. Like, listen, there wasn't a complete picture of Zion. Listen, we know what he can do. We know he's going to win multiple awards in this league. Trust me, he is a force to be reckoned with. But hey, first of all, your team's not in the playoffs. Second of all, you play a quarter of the season, so you can't take that, right? You can't take that away from Ja Morant. And by the way, if you're not going to give Kawhi Leonard an MVP because he got load management, then you can't give a Rookie of the Year to Zion Williamson because it's basically exactly the same thing.
That's true. I agree.
Right? So
we've seen a complete season of Ja Morant. We've only seen 26 games of for Zion. But if you want to bring back that C word in there, maybe Williamson will get it.
And that's no disrespect to Kendrick Nunn. He's going to get, some decent votes.
He's a decent player. He's a decent rookie.
There's nothing wrong, but I'm telling you right now, it's Rookie of the Year, right? And it's Ja.
And I think it's going to be a unanimous vote. I do. I don't think Kendrick Nunn. He'll get the second place vote. I think he'll finish second over Zion. I mean, unless Adam Silver has anything to say about it, then Zion still might finish second just because But I do think Kendrick Nunn deserves the second. You can't give Rookie of the Year to a guy that's played 26 games just because of his name and what he did in college. Like, he played 26 games, not 60. He played 26.
And out of those 26 games, he was still in limited minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not like he played majority of the games of the 26 games.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And again, this is not to penalize Zion. I mean, he got hurt. It is what it is, and
not his fault.
It's not his fault, but also you cannot penalize the other guys based on the fact that you didn't. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Nope.
And like I said, the Kawhi thing, to me, I was thinking about that today, is like, nobody wants to give Kawhi a sniff of an MVP vote because of load management. They literally manage this guy's loads every minute. So it is what it is. So
I agree.
Yeah, so on to the next one, which is, let's go to the Defensive Player of the Year. I think this one's an easy one, and I'm not even going to spend too much time on that. It's Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's the MVP, and he's going to be the Defensive Player of the Year. Simple as that. He is the best defensive player this year in the league.
Yeah. I think I'm going to give it to Gobert just for the fact that he shut down the league, but no, I'm just kidding. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo is definitely the runaway. Like, he led the league in win shares in terms of defensive win shares. He led the league in rebounds per game. He had a defensive rating of 97.6. I mean, he's a runaway favorite for the title. I don't think. No offense to Davis, who's a solid defensive candidate. Gobert, you know what he brings to the table in terms of defensive, but Giannis just turned it up to another level this year in terms of defensively.
Yeah, I agree. I got to give that to Giannis. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
All right, so let's move on to the Sixth Man of the Year award. We got Montrezl Harrell, or Montreal Harrell, as Shaq calls him. Dennis Schroeder, who's always been a Raptors killer, by the way.
Yeah.
And sweet chicken wing Lou Williams from the Clippers.
I'm giving this one to Dennis. I'm not gonna lie. Dennis Schroeder from OKC. Okay. I gotta go with him. He's been balling out, man. We've seen OKC. I mean, OKC's other than the Suns in the bubble, OKC has been the most impressive team this year.
Right. I think that the surprise team outside of Phoenix over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This team was supposed to be a lottery team, and they were supposed to trade Chris Paul or try to, right? And all of a sudden, they find themselves right in the middle of a playoff race.
Yep.
Chris Paul literally went down there and took over that team and made it his, man.
Gotta give him credit. Yeah, I'm not a fan, but I gotta give him credit. And they got the Canadian kid in Alexander who's played lights out as well. So
yeah.
But anyways, Dennis Schroeder. Okay, I like that pick personally. I can't disagree with that. Montrezl Harrell has had a great year. Sweet Lou Williams, I mean, he had his thing and he went to the chicken wing place, and we don't talk about that. He's been there, done that. To me, Lou Williams, to be in this award category is a little bit odd because this is what you expect from him. This is his job. He is a sixth man.
But and for Lou, it's just year after year after year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what he does anyway, right? And again, it's no disrespect to him, but so to me, it's I mean, Oklahoma City Thunder's Dennis Schroeder. Yeah.
So I'm going to too.
I'm gonna go as the lone wolf here. I'm gonna give it to Montrezl Harrell. I mean, not for anything like Dennis Schroeder. Don't get me wrong. It was a toss-up between him and Harrell for me. They were close. I just think Harrell, being in that lineup, I think he's been.
So you would give Harrell over.
Oh yeah, not hands down. Lou Williams was there too, but Harrell, his points went from he went to 18.6 points per game. His net rating was 6.5. He was higher than Dennis Schroeder in terms of net rating. I mean, he plays on the Clippers, so obviously their win percentage is going to be a little bit higher. But I mean, his win share in terms of how many he contributed to was 7 compared to 3.7 for Dennis Schroeder. So we're not he's helped propel, and you got to think Kawhi wasn't there for a lot of the games due to injuries or load management. Paul George was out. So, I mean, he had to step up and take a lot of the load. I mean, DeAndre Jordan's not there. So Montrezl Harrell steps into that spot, and I think he's contributed enough to give him that award. In my opinion, I think he's the sixth man. I mean, but it could go either way. It could go to Dennis. It could go to Harrell. I don't think Lou Williams is going to win, but I mean, Adam Silver may pay him back for the chicken wings, but I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Well, somebody's getting a bill from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Let's go to the coach of the year, and I'm purposely leaving the last category.
Yep.
For last, but
so, coach of the year for me, it's straight up Nick Nurse. He should have got it last year, and I don't see why he wouldn't get it this year. Right. So for me, Nick Nurse, Toronto Raptors, Nick Nurse.
I think based on the fact that we talked about this in the first 20 minutes of the podcast, that everybody thought that this team was going to be a 4 seed or lower, and they are basically clinched the 2nd seed now, and they're home and cooled with 2 guys that they that left, in Danny Green, your boy, and Kawhi Leonard, an elite player, and they're not supposed to be battling for a top seed in the league. I think coaching goes a long way because he gets them prepared. He's a great coach. And listen, I know that this podcast, where we live here in Toronto, and we can be a little bit of a homer sometimes, but I'm just telling you the facts. Nick Nurse is a great coach. He's coached this team to something that people said that they weren't supposed to be. And that, to me, is the whole point of having a Coach of the Year award, right? Budenholzer had, how many wins did they have last year? 60 plus?
61. Right?
Okay. So, in that team, the turnover in that team was not that significant. They added some pieces. We lost this team, the Toronto Raptors. They lost 2 major pieces.
They lost a superstar and an elite player.
No slouch. And then the rest of the team is still growing, and a lot of people don't even believe still in that. And
it's his second season too. It's his second year coaching. as
Now,
head coach.
shout out to Billy Donovan, because Billy Donovan and Nick Nurse are pretty much in that same category of, we didn't know you were going to be here. But I think that my gut feeling, listen, my pick is Nick Nurse. I have a feeling, guys, that Billy Donovan is going to win this award.
You think so?
I think so.
No, I think Nick Nurse will get it.
Trust me, I want to be wrong, but I don't know.
I was listening to this guy that I hardly ever listen to him too, Stephen A. Smith. And he obviously gets a vote, and he's like, his vote is for Nick Nurse. Because it's media voting, right? It's the media that votes for this award. So, I mean, a lot of guys I've heard, like media personnel I've heard, and they're saying it's Nick Nurse. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give it to Nick Nurse myself, but I think I'm going to go with Billy Donovan just for what he's done with OKC. I mean, he doesn't have a star player. Yeah, he's Chris Paul. I mean, is Chris Paul the same Chris Paul he was back in Charlotte? No, I mean, back in when he was the Chris Paul, the banana boat Chris Paul. No, he wasn't. He's not the same, he's not the same Chris Paul. But he has them in the playoffs. They're in the top 10 in both in net rating. They're 8th in defensive rating, which means they're one of the top defensive teams in the NBA. They're in the tough Western Conference. That's got to play a factor. I get Nick Nurse. He has them as he has the second best defensive rating, the 4th best net rating, 3rd most man games lost, but they're the defending NBA champions. No matter if you take off Kawhi or not, who cares? But what Billy Donovan's been able to do with that young team, with a guy, you lost PG, you lost Russ, you don't have that anymore. You have Chris Paul, Andre Robertson has stepped up, Gallinari, all these guys are playing bigger minutes, and he's been able to get a lot out of these guys, like I said, in a tough Western Conference. I want to give it to Nick Nurse. I think he deserves a Coach of the Year. But if I'm going based off of what other coaches see in terms of what we saw, I mean, Budenholzer, no offense to him, he got the Bucks to where they are, but I mean, everybody expected the Bucks to be there. It wasn't like they weren't expected to make the playoffs or finish 5th or 6th or anything. They were expected to finish at the top seed in the Eastern Conference. That's right what it expected. Nobody expected the Clippers, the Thunder to even make the playoffs. Nobody. But I mean, the Raptors. Like I said, I want to give it to Nick Nurse. I just think Billy Donovan's going to win it, just for the fact that he's taken a young team, put them together, and made them a cohesive unit, kind of like what Nick Nurse has done with the Raptors and what this team has done. If you make your team cohesive, you don't need a superstar. You don't need one like a superstar. You can have 6, 7, 8 solid players. You look at that lineup. You got Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench as a 6th man. I mean, he's
Gallinari,
right? Gallinari, Andre Robertson. There's a lot of guys on that team that are right. Steven Adams. There's a lot of those guys that are playing having career years. Like I said, I want to give it to Nick Nurse, but I got to go with Billy Donovan on that one.
All right.
Well, we have 2 for Nick Nurse, 1 for Billy Donovan.
All right. So our last category, and I think me and you, Mark, should just step away.
Just leave this one for
the most improved player. So we have the 3 candidates are Brandon Ingram, Bam, and Luka. The floor is yours.
Man, if I have to choose one, I'm going to have to choose one, but how do you include Luka Doncic, who many consider a top 10 player in the NBA, if not top 5 when he gets to his prime? He went from 21 points to 29 points this year. Okay, so what?
What Luka is doing this season is no surprise.
Yeah, it's not like he went from 14 points last season, playing limited minutes, to playing more minutes now, and now he's putting up 29 points. Okay, that's a different story. Kind of like what Pascal Siakam did last year. I just don't see how you even include him on there. Are you only included him because he's on a playoff team? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If you got to pick somebody out of a hat and said, okay, well, we're going to give it to Doncic. We're going to put him in there because we have nobody else because they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, Doncic said it himself, to not include a guy like Devontae Graham. Yeah, he was on Charlotte. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that went from 4.7 points per game last year. Yes, albeit with more minutes, more touches, all that stuff. Kemba Walker's not there. Get it. But he went to 18.7 points per game this season. He brought his assist total to 7.5 per game this season. He was shooting 373 from three-point line. The guy was and then somebody said on Twitter, you can't give it to a second-year guy. Then what the hell is Luka Doncic on there for? He's a second-year guy. You can't give it to a sophomore, but you can give it to a sophomore. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I just don't understand how you include Luka Doncic in with those guys. No offense to Bam Adebayo. He increased his workload and his point production and all that stuff. He had a good field goal percentage. He did all that. Brandon Ingram, I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram and give him the most improved player because I think that he was, while Zion was out, I think he was the MVP of that New Orleans Pelicans team. I just think that he took his game to another level this season. But I mean, if I was giving it to anybody, if I got a write-in vote, I'm voting Devontae Graham.
I agree. Instead of Luka, to me, I'd even rather see Pascal Siakam in there again, because he increased his points went up from 17 points per game, 16, 17 points per game last season to what, 24 points per game now. So I'm not saying that he should be in there, but I would prefer to see Pascal Siakam in there instead of Luka. But for that award, I'm definitely going with Brandon Ingram too. He's been balling, man. And as Marco said earlier, the Pelicans, they're a young team right now. It's the first season they're all playing together. Give them 2 seasons, they'll be a pretty good team.
I think the premise of most improved player is somebody who's not expected to do what they did on that particular year.
Yeah.
So going back to Pascal Siakam for 1 second, nobody expected Pascal to go from where he was before to basically almost doubling his point total, albeit with more playing time. Hence Graham's case to be in this category. We all expect Luka to do that. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to get better every year, right? You're an elite player for a reason. So to have him in this category makes no sense. And it doesn't mean that we're crapping on Luka. Obviously not. He's an elite player. He's going to be a star here for a long time. But why are you in this category? When the player himself who's been nominated says, why am I here, to your point, raises an eyebrow, right? In saying that, to me, based on everything that I just said, it's got to go to Bam. I mean, Bam has gone from, Bam to me is Pascal Siakam with muscle.
True.
Right?
This guy comparison.
Right? This guy was very rough around the edges to start his career, right? Sort of came up, got more playing time, and started to notice, right? His game is a little bit different than actually a lot different than Pascal, but the progression has been sort of similar. Pascal's progression, though, his incline has been a little bit more extreme than Bam, because Pascal has not been playing basketball for that long, but we're not going to talk about him for 1 second. But to me, in this particular case, I'm taking Luka out, I'm putting Graham in, and I'm still giving it to Bam, only because, again, he has gone from, there's been an improvement year over year, and you did not expect that. In a perfect world, Mark, I do agree, though, Graham should be in this category, and hopefully, unfortunately, he should have been, but he's not. So we can't fix that. But yeah, to me, that's the most improved player. It's Bam from Miami Heat.
Interesting. I mean, I'm
going to be wrong. It's going to be Luka. So
I wouldn't put it past the NBA or the writers to do that. I don't know how. I mean, like I said, I don't know how you could even listen to what Doncic said and still vote for Doncic. Like,
Right.
that's like, like it doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, it's got to go to somebody, and I hope it doesn't go to Doncic. I hope it goes to Ingram or Bam, whichever one takes it. I think Ingram's going to take it, but I mean, it could go either way.
I guess we're about to find out in a while, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how wrong or right we are.
Yeah.
But again, those are my choices. Even my water didn't agree and it fell off the table when I said Luka. So.
Yeah, it heard
Marco.
It heard Luka's name, and it's like, what the hell?
Marco, last chance to change your pick for the 8th seed.
Nope. Not happening. Memphis, do me that favor and just get in and get swept by the Lakers.
So you're saying just give Lakers a free pass for the first round?
I don't think they'll get a free pass.
Would you want to see Lakers and Blazers first round? Like, how entertaining that would be.
Oh, there's no doubt. For entertainment value, you want to see the Blazers, right? If you are ESPN and TNT, you want to see the Blazers.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, the experience of the Lakers is not going to. I personally think it's going to overpower the young Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't think the Lakers have anything to fear. And I know that people are saying, well, the Lakers don't want to face the Blazers and this and that. Listen, LeBron's not a rookie, right? Anthony Davis is not a rookie, right? The coach is not a rookie. This organization doesn't, work that way. And they might get Rondo back, so just in time for the playoffs. So I don't think the Lakers are worried. However, to answer your question, hell yeah. If the Blazers get in, sign me up.
Yeah. I'm the same.
Absolutely.
Other than I want the Suns to make it, but I mean, if the NBA and TNT and all those ones they want TV ratings, the Blazers against the Lakers, that's hands down the best matchup you could have. That's one of the best matchups you could have, right? To start off the playoffs, and especially in coming back in an NBA restart, they've already had like the 8 games. Solid competition through those 8 games for every team. This 8 seed, we had an 8 seed like run like this down the stretch of an 82 game season. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, you're talking about 4 teams that are basically tied for that 8 seed right now. It could go either way. But I think that's the that's the way to go. But like, I know, and speaking of the Lakers, I mean, they've kind of struggled so far to start the bubble here. I mean, are people worried? Are you worried about them? Are they kind of, what do you think?
I think it's a little bit concerning. There should be some concern there.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think, honestly, they've turned off the switch. And I know, and I even heard the great Reggie Miller on TV the other day say that sometimes it's hard to just flip it on. But I think they have the right guy to flip it on. I think 23, when the lights go on and they're brighter, he's going to be there. I'm not really worried about it. I think that they are playing very cautious, they're not playing aggressive because they don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
They're an older team, right? LeBron is not 22. Right, Anthony Davis usually gets nicked up around this time of the year, right? They already have a lot of injuries. They're trying to integrate guys. I think they'll be just fine. I think that they've been coasting. I think they took their foot off the pedal. They have nothing else to lose. They can go down, right? So they get who they get in the 8th seed, and then they'll be ready.
So you're saying they're playing possum?
Oh, I think they're playing big time possum. The only disadvantage that the Lakers have is that anybody else, well, Danny Green, wow, okay, is that
you're gonna do him like that? Jeez,
we went almost a full episode without you bitching about Danny Green. But I think that the Lakers are sort of a disadvantage versus any other team, believe it or not, and nobody's gonna feel sorry for them, that they're literally not gonna know who they face until the very last day. Yeah. Everybody is sort of preparing, okay, we have, these 2 potential matchups. And I know these guys get paid a lot of money to do a lot of scouting, but I think it's a little bit different. And I think that's something to keep an eye out. Now, does it worry me? If I was a Lakers fan, I'm not. But would it worry me? No. This is not their first rodeo, and I think they'll be fine. But I think they are coasting.
Yeah, I agree. I think, playoff LeBron is a different LeBron than a season LeBron. It's playoff LeBron takes things to the next level. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't put like a regular season, especially a season like this, where, halfway through the season or 3/4 of the way of the season, you stop the season because of COVID, and then they're coming back and starting fresh. I mean, I don't think you can take them out of the picture. I mean, is it concerning? Yes. But is it the be-all, end-all? No. I think that when they get into the playoffs, LeBron's going to play different. Anthony Davis is going to play different. Even Danny Green's going to start hitting shots. Maybe.
Well, maybe.
We'll,
And listen,
we'll see.
Sorry, Mark, but just want to jump in there. I just want to say that people forget that I think LeBron is out to prove something.
Oh, yeah.
Not only that he still got it, right? And if he doesn't win the MVP, which I believe will be announced before, was it still announced before or during the offseason?
Before.
No. Yeah, it's before the offseason. It'll be in the playoffs, supposedly.
In the playoffs? Okay,
Yeah,
so assuming that they're still in a deep run, which we assume they should be, and he doesn't win it, that's another fire under you know what. And not to get too dark and serious for 1 second, I think that the Kobe Bryant thing for him means a lot.
Yep.
And I think when Kobe passed, I think he took that onto himself to say, I'm
You want
going
to win for him. Yeah.
I'm going to try to win as a team, but I'm going to try to carry the torch to do it for Kobe.
Yeah.
And I know that it hasn't been talked about enough, maybe not now, maybe before a few months ago when this whole thing unfortunately happened in February, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or January. But I think that he's taking that responsibility on, along with everything else that's happening in the States and in the world right now with, the social injustice and the movement of Black Lives Matters. I think to him, although he's keeping both separate, I think it means a lot to him. And he wants to carry that mantle to be still the guy in the NBA. Nobody's forgotten that he's the guy. But I think that's an underrated narrative that people are not really paying too much attention to. And this is why I say that switch is going to be flipped. Right now, he's load managed himself. So it's all good. So if they lose the next two or whatever it was and they struggled, sure, whatever. You saw the intensity against the Clippers. That was a whole different team that we've seen the last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know why? They flipped the switch because they wanted to prove a point. And yes, I know the Clippers had two guys missing in their lineup, but that was a whole different ball game that the Lakers played. And I expect the same intensity and then some from LeBron and those guys.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right.
So again, next week's episode will probably be just as jam-packed because we're going to be in the playoffs, going to be in the thick of things. We'll know who that 8 seed is, who the Lakers are playing and stuff. So I think it'll be definitely another action-packed episode of the podcast. So, look forward to it. And
we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
See you in the playoffs.
Thank you for listening to the second episode of the Basketball Lab podcast.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram at @the_basketball lab, on Twitter at @the_bball_lab. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab, and you could find us on iTunes and Spotify.